I walked through my front door that Tuesday morning, still catching my breath from my usual walk around the neighborhood, and froze. My daughter Rebecca sat on my cream-colored sofa like she owned it. Her husband Brandon stood by the window, arms crossed. Neither smiled. Stay with me, because what happened next is a story unlike anything you've heard before. Rebecca's perfectly manicured hand gestured toward the chair across from her. Sit down, she said. We need to talk about your future. My heart started pounding, but I kept my face calm. I'd been expecting something like this. Just not today. Not like this. She slid a stack of glossy brochures across my coffee table. Greenvale Nursing Home, they read. Beautiful facilities. Professional care. 24-hour supervision. I don't need a nursing home, I said quietly. I'm 65 and perfectly capable of. That's exactly what someone with cognitive decline would say, Rebecca interrupted, her voice smooth as ice. Before I could respond, she reached across and plucked my phone from the side table. Then she held out her other hand. Your car keys. What are you doing? My voice trembled despite my resolve. What I should have done months ago, she said, dropping my phone into her designer purse. You're not safe living alone anymore. The papers are already drawn up. Transportation is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Brandon wouldn't meet my eyes. I looked at my daughter, this woman I'd raised alone, worked double shifts to give everything to, and saw a stranger. A stranger who wanted everything I'd built. But here's what Rebecca didn't know. I'd been planning for this day for 3 years. Before continuing, if this story is touching your heart, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to ring the notification bell, because every day I'm bringing you stories of women who turn their deepest pain into a new good way of living their lives. Let me take you back. Back to where this all began. 38 years ago, I held my newborn daughter in a hospital room alone. Her father, my husband James, had died in a car accident 3 months before she was born. I was 27 years old, widowed, pregnant, and terrified. But I made a promise that day. I whispered it into her tiny ear as she slept against my chest. I promise you'll have everything I never did. I promise you'll never want for anything. I kept that promise. God knows I kept it. I worked as a nurse at Hartford General, pulling double shifts, sometimes triple when they'd let me. My feet ached so badly some nights I'd cry in the hospital parking lot before driving home. But I'd dry my eyes, pick up Rebecca from the babysitter, and smile like everything was fine. I remember her 5th birthday. She wanted a bicycle with streamers on the handlebars like her friend Emma had. I'd been saving for 3 months, hiding $20 bills in an old coffee can under the sink. When I presented that bike on her birthday morning, her face lit up like the sun. That smile made every extra shift worth it. By the time she was 10, I'd been promoted to head nurse. Better pay, better hours. I started investing carefully, reading books from the library about real estate and financial planning. Every spare dollar went into savings or investments. I bought my first rental property when Rebecca was 12, a small duplex that needed work. I spent weekends painting and repairing instead of resting. Rebecca grew up comfortable. Not wealthy, but comfortable. She had nice clothes, school trips, piano lessons. Everything I could give her. But somewhere along the way, comfortable wasn't enough for her anymore. I remember the summer she turned 16. She came home from her friend Ashley's house and slammed her backpack on the kitchen table. Ashley's parents just bought her a brand new BMW for her birthday, she announced. When am I getting a car? I was driving a 10-year-old Honda Civic at the time, still perfectly reliable. Honey, I said gently, when you get a job and save up, we can talk about getting you a used car. Her face twisted with anger. You're so cheap, she spat. Ashley's mom doesn't make her work. Why should I have to? Because that's how you learn the value of things, I replied. She stormed to her room. It was the first time I saw that look in her eyes. That entitled, cold look that said I owed her something beyond love and care. But I told myself it was just teenage rebellion. She'd grow out of it. She didn't. In college, she called constantly asking for money. Textbooks, she'd say. Emergency expenses. One semester, I sent her $3,000 for books that somehow cost twice what they should have. Years later, I found out she'd spent most of it on spring break in Cancun. After graduation, she moved back home temporarily. Temporarily stretched into 2 years. She paid no rent, contributed nothing to groceries, but complained when I asked her to do her own laundry. When she finally moved out, she took half the furniture from the guest room without asking. Then came the beach house. I'd worked for 35 years to buy that property in Cape Cod. It was my dream, my retirement sanctuary. The place where I'd sit on the deck, watch the ocean, and finally rest after decades of exhaustion. Rebecca asked if she could stay there for a weekend with Brandon, her new boyfriend. Of course, sweetheart, I said. That weekend turned into a month. Then 6 months. Then they were living there full-time, telling people it was their summer home. When I mentioned wanting to use it for a week, Rebecca sighed heavily. We have friends coming that week. Can't you just stay at the main house? My own beach house, and I needed permission to visit. I started noticing other things too. Small things that added up. Rebecca borrowed my car and returned it with an empty gas tank. She used my credit card for emergencies that turned out to be designer purses. She threw a party at my main house while I was visiting Margaret, and I came home to wine stains on the carpet and a broken antique lamp. Sorry, she said with a shrug. Accidents happen. No offer to replace anything. No real apology. 3 years ago, I confronted her. We were sitting in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd made her breakfast before school every morning for 18 years. Rebecca, I need to talk to you about boundaries, I began carefully. She rolled her eyes before I even finished. Here we go, she muttered. I'm serious. You treat my home, my car, my things like they're yours. And when I ask for basic respect. You're being dramatic, she interrupted. God, you act like I'm robbing you. I'm your daughter. Families share things. Sharing goes both ways, honey. And respect. She stood up abruptly. You know what your problem is? You're bitter because you spent your whole life working and being miserable. Don't take it out on me because I know how to enjoy life. Her words hit me like a slap. I watched her walk out, and something shifted inside me. A mother's instinct, maybe. Or just painful clarity. I realized my daughter didn't see me as a person who'd sacrificed for her. She saw me as a resource to be used. The next week, I made an appointment with David Chun, an attorney Margaret had recommended. I sat in his office overlooking downtown Hartford and told him everything. I love my daughter, I said, my voice breaking slightly. But I'm afraid of what she might do someday. I'm afraid she's waiting for me to become vulnerable. David listened carefully, his kind eyes never judging. Then he outlined options. Trusts. Legal protections. Ways to ensure that if the worst happened, if my daughter tried to take advantage of me, there would be safeguards. I prayed I'd never need them. I signed the papers on a cold November afternoon. An irrevocable trust, transferring my major assets where Rebecca couldn't touch them. The beach house, the rental properties, most of my investments, all protected. Rebecca would receive a modest monthly allowance after my death, enough to live comfortably but not extravagantly. The bulk would go to charities and to Margaret, who'd been more family to me than my own blood. I walked out of David's office feeling both relieved and heartbroken. Because creating legal protection against your own child means accepting a terrible truth. The baby you held, the girl you raised, the woman you loved unconditionally, saw you as nothing more than a bank account. I went home that night and stood in Rebecca's old bedroom. Her high school trophies still lined the shelf. Photos of us smiling covered the walls. I touched the pink curtains I'd sewn by hand when she was 7. And I cried for the relationship we'd never have. For the daughter who valued things more than love. For the little girl with streamers on her bicycle handlebars who'd grown into someone I barely recognized. But I didn't undo the legal protections. Because deep down, I knew this day would come. I just hoped I was wrong. The room at Greenvale Nursing Home smelled like disinfectant trying to cover something worse. Boiled vegetables, maybe. Old age and defeat. I sat on the narrow bed with its rough white sheets and stared at the beige walls. A small window looked out onto a parking lot. This was supposed to be my new home. Rebecca had brought me here herself the next morning, just like she'd promised. Brandon drove while she sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through her phone, already mentally redecorating my house, I'm sure. At the entrance, she'd kissed my cheek. "It's for the best," she'd said softly, just loud enough for the staff to hear. "We love you so much. We just want you safe." The nurse who checked me in had kind eyes but tired hands. She'd seen this before. Adult children warehousing inconvenient parents. That first day crawled by like a wounded animal. Lunch was mystery meat and overcooked carrots. Dinner was worse. The other residents sat in the common room, some watching television with blank stares, others sleeping in wheelchairs. I wasn't like them. My mind was sharp. My body was healthy. I was trapped here by greed, not necessity. That first night, I lay awake listening to someone crying down the hall. I thought about my beach house, the waves I'd never hear again. My garden that would go untended. My life, stolen. But I reminded myself to wait. To be patient. David Chun knew where I was. Margaret knew. The plan was in motion. I just had to survive this place until it unfolded. On the second day, Margaret came to visit. She brought chocolate chip cookies in a tin and fury in her eyes. "This is criminal," she whispered, clutching my hands. "That ungrateful girl. After everything you did for her." I squeezed her hands back. "It's going to be okay," I said quietly. "Trust me." Margaret studied my face and saw something there. A calmness that didn't match the situation. She nodded slowly. "You have a plan." "I always have a plan," I replied. That afternoon, as I walked the sterile hallways trying to stretch my legs, I passed the nursing station. 2 staff members stood behind the counter, speaking in low voices. "That new woman in 247, one said. "Her daughter came by this morning, looking at furniture." "Already?" the other replied. "She's only been here 2 days. Said she's clearing out the beach house. Wants to sell it while the market's good." My blood went cold. I kept walking, my face neutral, but inside my heart hammered against my ribs. She was already selling my property. Not waiting until I died. Not even waiting a decent interval. Just taking everything. I returned to my room and sat on the bed, hands shaking. That's when I noticed the folder Rebecca had left on the small dresser. "Documents she'd been having me sign," she'd said. "Just routine paperwork for your care." I'd refused to sign anything without reading it first. That had made her angry. Now I opened the folder with trembling fingers. Powers of attorney. Durable and medical. Already filled out with Rebecca's name, just missing my signature. Letters to my bank requesting access to accounts, citing my alleged cognitive decline. Copies of applications to have herself added to property deeds. And there, at the bottom, a letter in Rebecca's handwriting to my financial advisor. "Dear Mr. Peterson," it began. "I'm writing to inform you that my mother is no longer capable of managing her own affairs due to advancing dementia. As her primary caregiver and daughter, I'm requesting immediate access to all account information so I can ensure her bills are paid and her assets are properly managed during this difficult time." Dementia. She'd told people I had dementia. My hands shook so badly the papers rattled. There was more. Bank statements showing withdrawals from our joint household account. Small amounts at first, a few hundred here and there over the past year. Then larger sums in recent months. 2,000. 5,000. 8,000. She'd been stealing from me for over a year, preparing for this moment. I sat there holding evidence of my daughter's betrayal, and something broke inside me. Not my resolve. My last hope that maybe, somehow, I'd been wrong about her. The little girl with the bicycle. The teenager who'd been difficult but normal. The young woman I'd kept making excuses for. She was gone. Maybe she'd never really existed. Margaret returned the next day with her phone hidden in her purse. "We need to call David," she whispered urgently. We found a quiet corner in the so-called garden, which was just a small concrete patio with a few dying plants in pots. Margaret dialed and put him on speaker, her cardigan shielding the phone from view. "David," I said quietly. "It's time." "I've been waiting for your call," he replied, his voice grim but ready. I've already prepared everything. Are you safe? For now. But Margaret found out Rebecca's been selling furniture from the beach house. And I found documents here. She's been forging letters, stealing money, telling people I have dementia. I need you to document everything, David said. Photograph those documents if you can. I'm contacting Adult Protective Services and the police today. Can Margaret get you those photos? Already taking them, Margaret said, her phone clicking quietly as she photographed each page of the folder. Good. I'm also filing an emergency motion to have you released from Greenvale. Based on the evidence you've gathered and the timeline of events, we have a strong case for false imprisonment and financial exploitation. How long? I asked. 48 hours. Maybe less. Can you hold on that long? I've held on through worse, I replied. That evening, I received an unexpected visitor. Brandon. He stood awkwardly in my doorway, looking anywhere but at my face. His expensive watch caught the fluorescent light. His golf shirt was perfectly pressed. I just wanted to check on you, he mumbled. Did you? I said flatly. He shifted his weight. Look, I know this is hard. Change is always hard. But Rebecca really thinks this is best. She loves you. Does she? I replied. Is that why she's already selling my furniture? Stealing money from our joint accounts? Telling people I have dementia when you and I both know there's nothing wrong with my mind? His face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do, Brandon. You've always known exactly who Rebecca is. You just chose to benefit from it rather than stand up to her. He backed toward the door. I should go. You should, I agreed. But Brandon, when this all falls apart, and it will, remember that you had a choice. You could have done the right thing. He left without another word. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the beach house. My sanctuary. I pictured Rebecca walking through it with real estate agents, calculating profits, pointing out features I'd chosen with such care. The deck where I'd planned to read books in retirement. The bedroom with windows overlooking the water. The kitchen where I'd imagined hosting Margaret for coffee on Sunday mornings. All of it just dollar signs to her. I thought about the main house too. The home where I'd raised her. Where I'd rocked her through nightmares and celebrated her birthdays. Where I'd cried alone after working double shifts. Where I'd built a life from nothing. She was erasing me from my own existence. Warehousing me like inconvenient furniture while she took everything I'd worked for. But here's what she'd forgotten in her greed and arrogance. She'd forgotten that I'd been fighting my whole life. Fighting to survive after James died. Fighting to raise her alone. Fighting to build something from nothing. Fighting to create security in a world that gave me none. Did she really think I'd stop fighting now? On the third morning, I was called to the administrator's office. My heart raced. This was it. Either rescue or something worse. I walked down the long hallway, past residents who'd given up, past rooms that smelled like resignation. The administrator, a thin woman with glasses and a tight bun, sat behind her desk. Next to her stood a police officer and a woman in professional attire holding a briefcase. Mrs. Thompson, the woman said gently. I'm Linda Martinez from Adult Protective Services. We've received some concerning information about your admission to this facility. The relief nearly buckled my knees. We have evidence suggesting you may have been placed here against your will, and that there may be financial exploitation involved. We'd like to ask you some questions. I answered every question clearly and thoroughly. My mind was sharp. My memory was perfect. I recited dates, events, account numbers, everything they needed to know. The police officer took notes. The administrator's face grew increasingly uncomfortable as she realized her facility had been used as a prison. Your attorney David Chun has filed an emergency motion, Linda Martinez explained. Based on our investigation and your clearly sound mental state, we're authorizing your immediate release. We're also opening an investigation into your daughter's activities. I walked out of Greenvale that afternoon with Margaret's arm around me, my few belongings in a bag, and my freedom restored. But the war wasn't over. It was just beginning. Before we continue, make sure to like this video and subscribe. With your support, We can keep bringing more stories from powerful women that touch the heart of all of us. Because what Rebecca didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that every asset she thought she was stealing had been moved years ago. The beach house, the rental properties, the investments, none of it was in my name anymore. She'd been planning to rob a vault that was already empty. And now it was time to show her exactly what happened when you betrayed the woman who gave you everything. Now it was time for her to face the consequences of mistaking kindness for weakness. And my love for stupidity. David Chun picked me up from Greenvale himself. His black sedan felt like a chariot of justice as we drove away from that horrible place. Margaret sat in the back seat with me, holding my hand. "We're going straight to your house," David said, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. "Rebecca doesn't know you've been released yet. We have officers meeting us there, along with representatives from Adult Protective Services. It's time to end this." My house. The word felt strange. Was it still mine? Or had Rebecca already changed the locks, moved in her own furniture, erased every trace of me? "We need to be strategic," David continued. "Rebecca has committed several crimes: attempted financial exploitation of an elderly person, false imprisonment, theft, possibly forgery. But we need her to incriminate herself further. We need her to reveal her intentions clearly, in front of witnesses." "What do you need me to do?" I asked. "Be yourself," he replied. "Be the strong, clear-headed woman you've always been. Let her show everyone exactly who she is." The drive to my house took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of my heart hammering, my mind racing through scenarios. Would Rebecca be there? Would she fight? Would she cry and play victim? We pulled up to my tree-lined street just as the sun was beginning to set. My house stood there, looking exactly as it always had. White pillars, wraparound porch, oak trees casting long shadows across the lawn. But something was different. There was a dumpster in the driveway. A large commercial dumpster, half filled with my belongings. I saw my grandmother's lamp sticking out of the pile. Trash bags full of what looked like clothes. Picture frames. Books. She was throwing away my life. Margaret gasped beside me. That absolute monster. 2 police cars were parked across the street, deliberately inconspicuous. David parked behind them. An unmarked sedan held the Adult Protective Services team. "Stay in the car for just a moment," David instructed. "Let me coordinate with the officers first." I watched him walk over and speak with the police. Serious faces. Nodding. One officer spoke into his radio. They were setting up the confrontation carefully, making sure everything was documented, legal, ironclad. Finally, David returned. "We're ready. Remember, stay calm no matter what she says. We have everything we need legally. This is just about giving her a chance to explain herself, and likely to incriminate herself further." I stepped out of the car on shaking legs. Margaret stayed close beside me, her arm through mine. The police officers followed at a distance, professional and alert. I walked up my own front path feeling like a stranger. The doormat said "Welcome home." I'd bought it 5 years ago at a craft fair. It felt like mockery now. David knocked firmly on the door. Footsteps inside. Then Rebecca's voice, annoyed, "Coming." The door swung open. Rebecca stood there in yoga pants and one of my cashmere sweaters. My sweater. She was wearing my clothes while throwing away my life. Her face went through a remarkable transformation. Shock. Confusion. Then anger. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. "You're supposed to be at Greenvale." "I live here," I said quietly. "This is my house." Behind her, I could see boxes stacked in the hallway. My artwork taken down from the walls. Furniture covered in sheets. "We need to talk, Rebecca," David said firmly. "I'm David Chun, your mother's attorney. These officers are with the Hartford Police Department, and this is Linda Martinez from Adult Protective Services. May we come in?" Rebecca's eyes darted between us, calculating. Brandon appeared behind her, his face pale. "I don't understand what's happening," Rebecca said, her voice shifting to concern, to worry. "Mom, are you okay? Did something happen at Greenvale?" Her hand reached toward me. "Did they let you wander off?" She was doing it. Right in front of everyone. Pretending I was confused, incompetent. "I'm perfectly fine," I said clearly. And I didn't wander anywhere. I was released because there was never any legitimate reason for me to be there in the first place. "Mom, you're not well," Rebecca insisted, looking at the officers with pleading eyes. She gets confused. Disoriented. That's why we had to make the difficult decision to. "I have no cognitive impairment," I interrupted, my voice stronger now. "I never did. And every professional who's evaluated me in the past 72 hours has confirmed that fact." David stepped forward. "Miss Thompson, we have evidence of financial theft, attempted exploitation, and false imprisonment. We'd like to give you an opportunity to explain your actions." Rebecca's face hardened. "This is ridiculous. I'm her daughter. I'm trying to take care of her. She's elderly, she shouldn't be living alone, and I was simply trying to ensure her safety and manage her affairs since she clearly can't." "I can manage my own affairs perfectly well," I said. "What I can't manage is a daughter who steals from joint bank accounts, lies to my financial advisors, tells my neighbors I have dementia, and tries to sell property that doesn't belong to her. I haven't stolen anything." Rebecca's voice rose, defensive now. "That money was for your care. The furniture I donated was old and needed replacing. And the beach house." "The beach house what?" I asked quietly. Rebecca's mouth snapped shut. Linda Martinez spoke up, her voice calm and professional. "Miss Thompson, we have documented evidence that you withdrew over $30,000 from joint accounts over the past 18 months. We have copies of letters you wrote to financial institutions claiming your mother was incompetent. We have witness statements that you've been selling furniture and personal property. And we have documentation showing you had your mother involuntarily committed to a nursing facility despite her having no medical need for such placement." "Those are all lies," Rebecca said, but her voice wavered. "Who told you these things?" "I told them," I said. "And I have proof of everything." Rebecca's face twisted with rage. The mask finally slipped. "You spiteful old woman. You've always been selfish. Always hoarding everything for yourself. Do you know what it's like being your daughter? Watching you work yourself to death, making everyone feel guilty because you sacrificed so much? I gave you everything," I said softly. "You gave me nothing." She was screaming now, tears of fury running down her face. "You gave me obligations. Expectations. A mother who made me feel like I could never be good enough because you were so perfect, so martyred, so self-sacrificing. So you decided to rob me? To lock me away? I decided to take what should have been mine anyway. Everything you have, you built because of me. You worked those shifts for me. You bought those properties for me. It's all mine by right." There it was. The truth. Raw and ugly and undeniable. The police officers stepped forward. Brandon backed away from his wife, hands raised like he wanted no part of this. David spoke quietly. "Miss Thompson, I need to inform you that your mother established an irrevocable trust 3 years ago. The beach house, the rental properties, and the majority of her investment portfolio were transferred into that trust at that time. You have no legal claim to any of it. What you've been attempting to steal doesn't actually belong to your mother anymore, and it will never belong to you." Rebecca's face went white. "What?" "The properties you thought you were inheriting, the assets you've been planning to control, they're beyond your reach. Your mother placed them in trust, naming charitable organizations and trusted friends as beneficiaries. You will receive a modest monthly allowance after her death, enough to live on but nothing more." "You what?" Rebecca turned to me, her face contorted with disbelief and rage. "When did you? How could you?" 3 years ago, I said quietly. "When I realized what you were becoming. When I saw that you didn't love me, you loved what you thought I could give you. You had no right." Rebecca shrieked. "I'm your daughter. Your only child. Everything you have should be mine." "I earned everything I have," I replied, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. "I worked for it. I sacrificed for it. And I gave you something far more valuable than money. I gave you unconditional love. But you only ever wanted the money. Because that's all that matters." Rebecca screamed. "Love doesn't pay for anything. Love doesn't give you security. You stupid, naive old woman, thinking love means something in this world. The police officer stepped forward. Miss Thompson, we need you to come with us to answer some questions regarding financial exploitation and false imprisonment charges. This is insane. Rebecca looked around wildly. Brandon. Tell them I was just trying to help. But Brandon was already edging toward the back of the house. I'm not involved in this, he said quickly. This was all Rebecca. I told her not to. I said we should wait. You coward. Rebecca lunged toward him, but the officer caught her arm. Miss Thompson, please don't make this harder. You need to come with us now. Mom. Rebecca's face suddenly changed, tears flowing freely now, her voice breaking. Mom, please. Please don't let them do this. I'm your daughter. I'm your baby girl. Remember? Remember when you used to call me your sunshine? Please. And there, in that moment, I saw both women. The manipulator trying one last tactic. And underneath, maybe, just maybe, the little girl who'd once loved me before greed twisted her into someone unrecognizable. My heart broke completely. I love you, I said, my voice cracking. I will always love you. But I can't save you from the consequences of your choices. You did this, Rebecca. You chose money over your mother. And now you have to face what that means. The officers led her away. She screamed the whole time. Accusations. Curses. Then pleas. Then threats. Her voice echoed down the street as they put her in the patrol car. Brandon slipped out the back door. I heard his car start and drive away. The man who'd stood by and let his wife abuse an elderly woman. He'd face his own reckoning eventually. I stood in my doorway, Margaret's arm around me, David beside me, and watched the police car drive away with my daughter inside. The woman I'd held as a baby. Rocked through nightmares. Taught to ride a bicycle. Sent to college. Loved with every fiber of my being. Gone. Margaret held me as I finally cried. Great, wrenching sobs that came from a place deeper than bones. The grief of a mother losing her child not to death but to greed. The pain of betrayal from the one person who should have protected you. It's over, Margaret whispered. It's finally over. But it didn't feel like victory. It just felt like loss. The legal proceedings took 3 months. Rebecca was charged with attempted financial exploitation of an elderly person, theft, and false imprisonment. Her attorney tried to paint her as a concerned daughter who'd made mistakes out of worry. But the evidence was overwhelming. The forged letters. The stolen money. The lies about my mental state. In the end, she accepted a plea deal. Probation, restitution, and mandatory counseling. The judge was harsh in her statement. You betrayed the person who loved you most in this world, she said. I hope someday you understand the magnitude of what you've lost. Rebecca never looked at me during the sentencing. Not once. Brandon filed for divorce 2 weeks later. Apparently, facing criminal charges wasn't part of his plan for comfortable living. I didn't attend most of the proceedings. David handled everything. I couldn't bear to sit in that courtroom and watch my daughter face consequences I'd set in motion, even though I knew they were necessary. Instead, I focused on rebuilding. The main house held too many memories, too much pain. I couldn't walk through those rooms without seeing Rebecca as a child, running down the hallways, laughing in the kitchen. The ghost of who she'd been haunted every corner. So I sold it. I moved into a beautiful apartment overlooking the harbor in New Haven. Smaller, simpler, but with floor-to-ceiling windows that let in the morning light. From my balcony, I could watch boats sailing across the water. The sound of seagulls replaced the silence of that big, empty house. Margaret helped me decorate. We chose light colors, comfortable furniture, fresh flowers on every surface. This is a place for new beginnings, she said as we hung cheerful artwork on the walls. I kept the beach house. Some wounds were too fresh, and I needed time before I could walk through those rooms again. But I knew eventually I'd return there. Eventually, I'd sit on that deck and watch the waves and feel something other than grief. In the meantime, Margaret used it for family gatherings. Her grandchildren played on the beach. Their laughter-filled rooms that had known too much scheming and greed. It felt right, somehow. Life and joy replacing calculation and betrayal. I found purpose in unexpected places. A women's shelter in Hartford needed volunteers. I started going 3 times a week, helping women who were rebuilding their lives after abuse, after loss, after betrayal. Many of them had been exploited financially. Many of them had trusted the wrong people. I understood them in ways I never wanted to but did. I taught workshops on financial protection, how to safeguard assets, warning signs of exploitation, legal tools for elder protection. I shared my story, and I watched recognition dawn in their eyes. You're not alone, I told them. And you're stronger than you think. One woman, Maria, reminded me of myself 30 years ago. Working double shifts, raising kids alone, trying to build something from nothing. I mentored her personally, helped her open a savings account, taught her about investments. Watching her confidence grow, seeing her start to believe in her own future, it healed something inside me that Rebecca had broken. Margaret remained my closest friend, my sister in all but blood. We had coffee every Sunday morning in my sunny apartment. We took walks along the harbor. We talked about everything and nothing. She never mentioned Rebecca unless I brought her up first. Some days I didn't think about my daughter at all. I'd wake up, make breakfast, volunteer at the shelter, meet Margaret for lunch, read on my balcony in the evening. Simple days. Peaceful days. Other days, the grief hit me like a wave. I'd see a mother and daughter laughing together in a coffee shop, and my chest would tighten. I'd remember Rebecca's baby smell, her tiny hand in mine, the way she used to call me mama and mean it with all her heart. Those days were harder. I never heard from Rebecca. Not a letter. Not a call. Nothing. Part of me hoped she'd reach out someday. Apologize. Show some glimmer of the daughter I'd raised. But another part of me, the wiser part, knew that might never happen. Some people never learn. Some people never change. And you can't love someone into being better. They have to choose it themselves. 6 months after the trial, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset paint the harbor gold and pink. I held a cup of chamomile tea, still warm in my hands. A gentle breeze carried the salt smell of the ocean. And I realized something profound. I was okay. Not healed completely. Not without scars. But okay. I'd spent my whole life building security for Rebecca, sacrificing for Rebecca, loving Rebecca. And in the end, none of it had been enough for her. But it had been enough for me. I'd worked hard. I'd loved deeply. I'd protected myself when I needed to. I'd survived betrayal and come out the other side with my dignity intact. I'd learned that the greatest wealth isn't what you leave behind. It's the dignity you carry with you, and the love you give to those who truly deserve it. The sunset deepened to crimson and violet. Boats returned to harbor. The city lights began to twinkle. And I sat there, a woman who'd lost her daughter but found herself, and I was finally at peace. If this story moved you, click on the next video that's appearing on the screen now. I'm sure you'll be surprised by this new emotional and heartbreaking story I have right here to tell you.